Our Computex 2023 coverage is made possible by Thermaltake, Leanne Lee, G-Skill, Cable Mod, Team Group, Asus, XPG, and Seasonic. Well, what's up guys, I'm Stuart from GGF. It is day 3 at Computex 23 and we are at the Thermaltake booth. Now there's a lot going on here. We have a lot of awesome builds over to my right. And we have a heap of cases, some new fittings that I'm really keen to check out, because you know me, I do my custom builds, especially with water cooling, and that's what GGF is all about. So we're going to check out those. We're going to check out one new case. In terms of cases with Thermaltake, there's not a whole lot they brought out at Computex this year because they just launched their CTE range. I do have a build in this booth. I'll probably just throw some B-roll up. I won't really cover that build specifically because there are some other areas I do want to cover. So let's jump in and check them out. All right, now the first case we're looking at here is the Tower 200. Now these come in a few colors. I'll throw some B-roll up. Like I always say, we have the matcha green, we have the racing green, and then we have the teal color, the white, and then the black. So we have a heap of these coming in all these colors. Now you may have seen this at CES earlier at the start of the year. Now this case is pretty much final, so it will be releasing soon. Now there are a few differences because Thermaltake did have the Tower 100. This is kind of similar, but now there is a lot more airflow. Instead of having glass around the sides, now the sides have your vented, I would say it's a vented mesh design, but it's really not mesh. But inside all of these panels, there are removable dust filters, which is good to see. And GPU support for this one is now beefed up to 4 slots, and you could even fit more than 4 slots, because I can see up here, we've got clearly 4 slots of for your GPU, and there's quite a bit of room still to go, so that's nice to see. In terms of things like GPU length and all that, I don't really know that yet. I'm sure Thermaltake will send me one to check out and review, and I can add all of those stats in there for you guys. Now the front now just comes off. As before, you had to either like take the top off or undo the screws and so on. So this just comes straight out like this, which is really nice. And you may have noticed a little screen on the front. Thermaltake have been doing a few of these now. It's probably overexposed a heap in this video, but this is an optional accessories. Normally when you get this case, it'll just be the same design, will just flow all the way through. But if you do pick up their little LCD kit that runs into USB and so on, it will come like this, and then you just choose the color for your chassis you've gone with, or you can mix and match and go with a different color. Now what I'll do is I'll take the top off so we can see how these sides come off. So that just lifts straight off like that. And now the sides just simply pop out, and they're actually held in place via that top panel. Now for cooling support, in this case, it is 240 standard all-in-one cooler. You could probably do a sick little water cool build in this case. I might give it a shot and see how it goes, because I can see there is quite a bit of room. In terms of motherboard support, it is MITX only. I was thinking it would do MATX, and I was pretty sure it could. I spoke to the guys at TT, some of the engineers, and they said secretly it can do MATX, but they're not really listing it like that because it is a little bit of a mission. But they said more of the enthusiasts, the advanced users, modders, you can fit an MATX motherboard in this chassis. For things like release dates and prices, I might once again throw these all in the description so you guys can see what they're going to be priced at and when they're going to come out on the market. Now let's jump in and have a look at some new water cooling fittings. Now I've been using Thermaltake for a very long time, and I've been using their fittings for a very long time as well. Now some of you guys out there might not know that Thermaltake have been doing their C Pro fittings for a very long time. I'll get a close-up on them. They're probably one of the best fittings that I've used. The way that there's different, it's kind of hard to explain, but if you have 2 fixed points in your build, normal fittings, you have to insert the tube into the fitting. So if you've got 2 fixed positions, it's hard to get your tube in, say, point A to B without trying to move one of those fixed points or trying to bend the tubing in. Whereas these ones, when you undo these completely and screw them in, there's actually just a level playing field between the tubing and the fittings. You can just slide the fittings over the tubing, you can slide the tubing in place, and then you can just put down the collars on each one. So that works out really good, and then it just makes it a little bit easier. Plus I think there's something like 5 O-rings in their C Pro fittings. So what they've got here, these are their new Pacific SF fittings. These are all brand new, and they got this knurling around the side, which makes it a little bit different. So I've been told that this SF will be replacing the C Pro. Now these will come in 3 different finishes. I really dig these matte black ones. They just look really nice. Then we have gloss white. I'm not sure on your thoughts. What do you think, gloss white or matte white? To me personally, I think matte white would look a little bit better. And then we have these interesting ones here where it's chrome, and this black on these ones seems to be a gloss black instead of a matte black, which we saw on the other ones. And of course, I'll get some close-ups on all of these so we can see in terms of what they're bringing out in the different types of fittings. I can see here there's a bunch of extensions. Of course, you have the end fittings, we have rotary extensions, we have your dead set 90s, we have the multiple 90s, oh that's a 45, and we have the multiple 90 which does the 45 and the 90. At this stage it's only in 16 millimeter outer diameter. I'm really trying to push them to do 14 millimeter because personally that's my choice of size when it comes to tubing and fittings, so it'll be sweet to see when they can start bringing the 14 millimeter out. But yeah, really good to see some more fittings. It'll just be sweet to see if they can bring out more of the full range of fittings, like offset fittings, not just your basic 3 extensions and a few angles. So if they can bring out a full range, that'll be really good to see. Moving on to the custom water blocks that Thermaltake has just launched. These are for their 4080 and 4090. Now these ones are for the Strix and the Tough Gaming, and it looks like they're also doing the MSI Supreme and Gaming Trio. Just make sure you choose the block for your card, but I definitely know the Strix and the Tough are going to be for the same block, but you will have to pick up either the 4080 if you've got a 4080 and then the 4090 block for the 4090 card, because they are different. And that's just your standard block, no active backplate. We don't really need that on the 40 series cards, and as you can see, a bunch of LEDs around the backside of the card. And moving over to something else that is new, Thermaltake has the Pacific SW1 Plus CPU water block, and that's it over here. And then you have that accent piece around. I'm pretty sure that is, I'm just trying to feel, that does feel like aluminum, and that does look nice, and it actually is quite heavy, and it feels really good. And once you actually get some flow into this block, it looks like it's going to look pretty cool with some bright coolant. It's just hard to see at the moment because it is empty. And then we have an RGB ring around the side, so that does look really nice, and that of course will support all your latest Intel and AMD platforms. If you saw any of our coverage at CES earlier this year, we all knew Thermaltake was bringing out these new distros. Now these are for their core P6 and P8. They're basically both the same. The only difference is the P8 is of course the larger one, and the P6, and it will also do the P5 as well, which is the smaller one. And then the main difference between these two are the LCD screen at the top. And that's a cool little feature that'll run into the Thermaltake software, into the ecosystem. And as you can see, they've got some videos on there now. You can put temperature, you can put all your stats, you can put GIFs, you can put whatever you like. And then you also have the ones without the screen. Now these ones go in front of the chassis, in the front of it. They don't go on the side. So if you're familiar with the P6, how it has that open frame chassis, this one goes on the front, and you can see your coolant from the front side of it. And then of course you have like your ins and your outs and your ports for your GPU and your CPU. Over here we have the brand new Series 300 TG for the tempered glass. I've taken it off because you don't want to see a heap of reflections. Now this will be coming out in standard orientation chassis, but for those who have a good eye, you may notice something a little bit different with this motherboard. Now this is running a Asus Tough motherboard, and you might notice that there are no connectors on the main side of the board. Everything is shooting at the back, and that's what makes this really interesting. This case has been specifically designed for those new motherboards that are coming out. Whether they're coming out, we don't know. I know there's going to be some struggles from a lot of companies to release these, but I've only seen the ones from Asus so far. I was at their press launch a few days ago, and they had a few boards. They even had a GPU where everything plugs in from the rear. Now the only issue is that multiple case support is going to struggle, because that means the back of the motherboard is going to have your 24 pin, your SATA, all your fan headers, your EPS, and so on. We'll take a look around the back and see how all of this is implemented into the case. So as you can see, everything is running out the backside of the case. Now I want to know your thoughts. Is this going to be the future? I know a lot of guys do like seeing cables. I don't really like seeing SATA cables, fan cables, and so on, but I really do like to see things like your 24 pin, your EPS, and then your GPU cables, especially when you're doing a custom mod build. You're doing something towards a theme, like a BMW theme, or like a game theme. Being able to customize your 24 pin to theme your system, to contrast with everything else, is really nice. Having everything to shoot out the back, it's going to make cable management very, very nice, very, very clean, but I think it's going to make the main side a little bit boring. As you can see, the back here looks very nice, but in saying that, Thermaltake has had to specifically design this case, especially for this motherboard. Now they also have another one in the Series 500. Now that case is a bigger case, that's an ATX case. So that means between the ATX one and then the M-ATX motherboard, they need to make two different SKUs to allow for those motherboards. And in saying that, it also comes down to Asus on how many SKUs they're going to have of this M-ATX board. They might do it so the 24 pin is a little bit lower, a little bit higher, that means Thermaltake might need 3 SKUs of one case to allow for the different boards, and that's just for Asus only. What about companies like MSI and ASRock who start bringing out this type of board? To me personally, I was thinking something easier might be to just have a long slit that goes down this way, a long slit that goes down the bottom, and a long slit that goes along the top. Structurally, integrity for that might be hard because then you're going to have really small sort of tie down points to screw your motherboard down, but coming up with something more universal than just having a small hole here just for the 24 pin, just for USB. This really little hole here, this is literally going to do 2 SATA, and this here, I'm not sure, that might be your front panel or something else. And then we have the slot along the bottom. So these are very small holes specifically just for this board. So I think there needs to be a different way to try and make this a little bit more mainstream that's going to allow support for a lot more boards out there rather than just one. In terms of ETA, all of this is up in the air. This is a 100% prototype. We don't know if even this is coming to the market, so I guess we'll soon find out. Lastly, before we finish up here at the Thermaltake booth, I just wanted to go over the build that I did for this Thermaltake Computex 2023 booth. Now this here is in their brand new CTE 750. This is the Air Snow Edition. It does follow the same design that this case is done. This case actually comes like this. The motherboard I/O is shooting up, and this is how it's done. I did modify it, but I did keep the standard layout. I have done builds before where it's the normal ATX form factor and I normally rotate the motherboard, but this one, we have kept the motherboard in its standard layout. But the interesting thing I did on this one, I actually gutted the whole inside of the chassis. I ripped the stock motherboard tray all along the top, all along the side, all along the front side, and then I took that out. I basically threw that away, grabbed a thick 10mm sheet of frosted acrylic. If you're into modding and you want some cool, unique ideas with lighting and motherboard trays, make a custom motherboard tray out of frosted acrylic, throw some LCDs behind it out of the way so it shines over it, and then you get this really unique lighting effect. And then I just mounted the motherboard back on it. I actually used the distro from, I think it's their P6, I call it the hockey stick. It's that big long L. I mounted it down the bottom, then I added some panels at the bottom, panels at the back. I ran all the tubing straight down, and then I put this little cover fascia strip here, and that hides all the fittings because these fittings go down, then they shoot all back out the back and then back in, and that's how the loop is done. So this is running the ASRock Aqua Z690. I did paint it white to complement this build. It is running the Asus Strix 4080, and that's running the brand new Thermaltake 4080 block as well. Of course, the Thermaltake radiators, which I painted white. Another thing, it'd be really good if Thermaltake started doing white radiators. That would save me and a lot of people having to paint their rads if they do. It's running their brand new Swarfan EX fans, the ones that all connect together. I can take this off and then the fans will just turn off because they're all magnetically done. I won't do that because I want to keep it going. But yeah, pretty much that's it on this build. I just wanted to give you guys a showcase on this one because I haven't really covered this one much lately. There are a heap of other builds out here. I think there's like 10 more modders. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go over them because if I have to do one, I'd have to do them all, and I don't have time to go over them. But everyone who's been following Thermaltake, there are some amazing, I wouldn't say some, they're all amazing modders here, and they all do awesome work. But anyway, that's going to be it at the Thermaltake booth. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.